So, despite what asset flip games would have you believe, the process of making a video game is an incredibly lengthy one. From securing funding, to designing assets, to managing a team and dealing with publishers, there is so much work that goes into even the smallest of projects that it's no wonder that some titles can take years to even get through to testing stages. And as you might expect, with so many balls in the air, it becomes very easy for one to drop and take the whole project with it, sending titles tumbling from the ascent and into development hell. Here, in this fetid wasteland, projects can languish for years, having assets scraped out to be used for other games or passed back and forth between publishers who cut and chop so much that the final project ends up looking nothing like the original intention. Yet these are the lucky ones, as at least these actually saw the light of day eventually. Well, lucky if you define releasing to a chorus of boos and hisses as being fortunate. I'll give you one guess as to what happened to these 8 titles. Yeah, buckle up. With this in mind, I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 5 video games that escaped development hell and turned out terrible. Number 5, Spore. Now, while it would be pretty harsh to call Spore absolutely terrible, seeing as there is still a lot to be enjoyed within this title, it is most definitely a product of its own hype derailing the final product, and was not helped by a monstrous development time of 8 years, having started in 2000 and finally dropping in 2008. It actually became a bit of a running joke, with the title appearing at 3 consecutive E3s with announcements that it would release that year, only for it to fail to materialize. It seems that this is actually an also pretty apt comparison to the game's core mechanics as well, which were stripped down immensely from what was promised in trailers and promotional content, and thus many players felt less like they were being delivered a truly detailed experience and more like 3 different mini-games that had been partially fleshed out. With tweaks, updates and some good old-fashioned add-ons, this game is in a much better nick now. However, the question remains, should it have taken this long to release something so subpar in the first place? Number 4, Duke Nukem Forever. We begin this list with one of the most pathetic video games from a rather pathetic video game hero, Duke Nukem, aka Duke Nukem Forever, a title which spent a whopping 15 years in development and was finally released in 2010 to, let's just call them, less than favourable reviews. The project was almost doomed from the start when issues acquiring the Quake 2 engine left the developers scrambling to produce screens of a game they didn't even have the code to make at the time. From there, multiple funding issues saw the dev teams expand and shrink along with the interest in the game itself and the public. In 2009, 3D Realms announced that it was ditching the entire team to move on with other interests, citing Duke Nukem Forever as a money pit of resources. In stepped Gearbox Software, at the time heralds of the gaming industry thanks to the rampant success of Borderlands, and captured a ton of positive attention for the title. Randy Pitchford, in a rather cringe-inducing moment, took to the internet to promote how they had saved the game from oblivion and were bringing it to console very soon, even if they did jokingly delay it once more for good measure. However, with this amount of gestation, with this amount of change, Duke Nukem Forever became a horrible Frankenstein's monster of outdated ideas and concepts and a whole mess of bugs. As a result, it died a death in the critical eye. Duke had thought himself the shit, but as the opening moments of this title proved, he just spent over a decade with a thumb in his arse. Number 3, Too Human. It's a pretty sorry story that the biggest impact that Too Human had on the video games industry was that it effectively killed its developer, Silicon Knights. Too Human was a game 10 years in the making, having started out as a PS1 title before jumping over to the GameCube before finally settling on Microsoft's Xbox 360. Now, just reading that sentence out aloud is utterly baffling. Not only did the game skip 2 console generations, but also bounce between the big 3 platforms before landing on its face. With an overbearingly long death animation, generic action, and abysmally stiff camera, Too Human held all of the hallmarks of a game that was just stuck in the past. Yet it was nothing too egregious, right? I mean, how could mediocrity kill a developer? Well, you see, Too Human also has a dark secret, namely that while it claims to be built on the Silicon Knights engine, this was actually the Unreal engine that the devs had slapped a bit more code on top of. And that, my friends, is very illegal on a non-open source bit of kit. This led to the devs being sued out of existence and Too Human actually being removed from sale, being cast back into the pits of hell once more. Mercifully, Microsoft added the game back into its ranks, but only after years and years of silence. Although, to be fair, the resurrection animation took just as long, so it's pretty apt. Number 2, Crackdown 3. More like Letdown 3, am I right? More like Cackdown 3, am I right? More like this game got a critical smackdown 3. Yeah, I'll carry on. In all honesty, I'm actually genuinely gutted that this game was but a shadow of its predecessors. A quite literal throwback to the previous generation, Crackdown 3 should have been explosive fun right out of the gate, especially when the team took 4 years to get the sequel to market. However, the issue was that this wasn't just paying homage to the action-focused and brain-dead bliss of old-school games, but actually looked like it was running on previous generation hardware. Janky and unfulfilling, Crackdown 3 held none of the charm of its originals and somehow even offered less than either of the pair, dialing down explosion effects and animations to the point that it felt rushed despite its lengthy incubation period. Not even comedy icon Terry Crews could save this project. It felt less like Double Sun and more like a flickering light bulb in some forgotten basement. A real shame. And number 1, Aliens Colonial Marines. This game infuriates me for so many reasons. Firstly, it's just a piss-poor title which actively managed to sully the good name of the Alien IP and instantly became a meme goldmine thanks to its awful AI programming and catastrophically boring action sequences. Secondly, it's a clear-cut example of a developer lying to an audience, in this case, Gearbox Software, who showcased air quotes real footage of the game only for the final product to look precisely nothing like what was advertised. And finally, this was a game that was actually ruined by another stinker on this list, Duke Nukem Forever. When Gearbox got their hands on that chicken fat coloured mess, they diverted resources and manpower away from Colonial Marines and into Duke's dumpster fire. As a result, a ton of development was just farmed out to other outside sources, which actually does go some way to explaining the absolute mishmash of gameplay here. And remember how I highlighted just how poor the AI was? Well, thanks to some devout code jockeys diving into the game, they found that it was just 1 or 2 lines of code that were completely balked. And upon fixing this, the game was elevated from an absolute pile of piss to, well, an at best below average title. But that jump is insane. Maybe if Gearbox stayed focused on this project, then that sort of glaring error would have been caught. I hope you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. If you want to chat to me further, you can do so over on Twitter at RetroJ, or you can swing by Live and Let's Dice. It's my personal gaming channel where I stream every single Wednesday and Sunday. It'd be great to see you over there. But before I go, my friends, I just want to say one thing. Sometimes in life we can spend time in our own version of development hell, where life will just seem unfair, crushingly so, for no reason whatsoever. But you know what? You don't need to turn out terrible in the end. You deserve love, happiness, and success. So if you've made mistakes that have put yourself into a bad rut, then please try and forgive yourself. Try and move on, because only by doing so will you be able to live a healthy and happier life. Go out there with love in your heart and build bridges instead of burning them, because you are a massive ledge. Now go out there and absolutely smash it. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.